it's an honor to be here for my good friend Mark and to introduce Brian Moran. Let me tell you something. Elections matter and people matter, because after elections, the right people follow the results. And that's what's happened here with Brian Moran. I had a problem for a number of years in the legislature that I couldn't solve. I found out, I was doing a lot of work with with folks who were on the sex offender registry. There's about 19 to 20,000 of those folks. Some of them very dangerous people, but a lot of them, fairly harmless folks caught up in some misfortune, and found out that they were not given any information about what they were supposed to do as members of the registry. And there's 37 pages of code on that subject. So I would introduce bills saying, hey, let's write up a list of rules and things that these folks need to know so that they can stay out of trouble, so they can not put themselves in situations that trigger an offending pattern or what have you. Let them know what they're supposed to do. I couldn't get anywhere in the House Militia and Police Committee. I couldn't get anywhere with the state police. Nobody wanted to do the right thing and help those citizens who, to be honest with you, are some of the least among us. Some of the folks with some of the greatest challenges and struggles, and who do have challenges that create public safety problems. But every year I would lose this bill. 7 o'clock in the morning, and militia and police. Brian, you've been there. Mark, you've been there. It's a killing field. Nobody wants to do anything to help these folks, and they're citizens too. And 37 pages of code reads about like stereo instructions. And people would tell me, well, just have them go on the internet. Well, they're not allowed to go on the internet because of the restrictions that are on them. And after Terry McAuliffe won his race and appointed my good friend Brian Moran as Secretary of Public Safety, I went to Brian and his folks with this problem. And they said, of course we can fix this. And after about 6-8 months worth of meetings with all the different stakeholders in this thing, we came up with a very simple brochure that just lays out the rules and where you can go and get information and what's expected of you, that we hand out to 19,000 citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia. A simple thing, but it doesn't happen unless you win elections, and it doesn't happen unless after you win an election, you appoint people like Brian Moran as Public Safety Secretary, who will step up for public safety, step up for the least of Virginians, and not just win political points by hammering those that it's sometimes very easy to hammer. And it's something that I appreciate. When I came down to the legislature, Brian was my caucus chairman, and it was pretty clear that we had good leadership with Mark Sickles, who I guess was one of the ones who followed Brian in that role after Ken Plum. We've been in good hands in Virginia, and that's why it is my honor and my privilege to introduce the Honorable Brian Moran, Secretary of Public Safety. So, any number of issues, folks, we've been working on. I will tell you, I'll follow the theme that Dave has created here in terms of elections matter. They truly do, and Sue and her Fairfax County Democratic Committee, all of y'all, thank you so much. I mean, Fairfax now is a blue county, so thank you very much. Those of us who have some gray hair, remember the days, that wasn't always the case. Ken Cuccinelli, well, I won't go through the names, but it wasn't always the case. And you all have done your job. Now we just need to get into Loudon and Prince William. We pick up those seats and we're going to be in great shape. Because there are some things that need to be done. We just, once again, last week were reminded about the scourge of guns in our communities. The terrible tragedy last Monday of 2 young lives snuffed out, promising lives. Now, a lot of folks, Eileen came right out, and so many of our other friends, Adam and so forth, and said there are reasonable restrictions that we can impose on guns while we observe the Second Amendment. And of course, we heard from the other side, oh, this, one reasonable restriction would be that those who have been convicted of misdemeanors in the domestic violence area shouldn't have a gun, but they are in Virginia. And those subject to a protective order, that they've displayed to a judge that they're dangerous, shouldn't have a gun. Now, of course, in that case, that wouldn't have been exactly relevant, and nor gun show loophole. But I'll tell you one thing that was very relevant in that case. That individual who was obviously disturbed as you go through, the fact that ABC News sent me his manifesto that morning. It was sitting in my email.
Wow.
I'm like, I don't want this in my email, Mark. But I had an opportunity to read it, obviously, and I sent it over to the Virginia State Police. Obviously disturbed. Had been for some time. You know, he did buy both of his handguns on the very same day in July. Now, just a few years ago, that would not have been legal because we had one gun a month in the Commonwealth, and that was not only to restrict large, voluminous gun sales to New York, but also to prevent this type of thing. Somebody who was having those sorts. Steve, am I talking too quickly? I'm sorry, I didn't know you were writing it down. But one gun a month was the law until Governor McDonnell was elected, and they repealed it. Delegate Linghamfelter patroned the bill. Linghamfelter patroned the bill. He has an opponent in Prince William County.
Sarah Townsend.
Sarah Townsend. P.O. Box, you can write a check.
Just send it to me and I'll give it to you.
So that mattered. And you know, okay, he used one gun, but he had another gun with multiple rounds of ammunition. Could have wreaked havoc on others. And we saw in France, his gun malfunctioned, and they were able to capture him. If that gun had malfunctioned, he could have pulled out another gun and caused that harm. So laws do matter. Who we elect in the legislature truly matters. In gun violence, clearly that is an issue that should be paramount, and I know it's paramount for you because Mark Sickles has been on the battlefield of that each and every time, voting the right way. And I know others in this crowd have been as well. And so we got to take that fight to him again in January. So we need some more folks who are like-minded with respect to that issue. Another issue, I see Bill Richardson here. The governor, you know, we spend over $1 billion in corrections. Now, as a prosecutor, I don't have any problem locking folks up who have committed serious crimes. But in the Commonwealth, we spend over $1 billion now. And last year, there was a budget deficit. And of course, they came to me because, well, corrections, you know, you spend $1 billion. So we had some tough choices to make. We have a great public safety official here, Stacey Kincaid, runs the sheriff's office. She is a leader in the Commonwealth amongst her peers. So they came to me and they said, well, we got to find $200 million from your budget. Severe cuts. And, you know, because this governor believes in reentry and second chances, we said, you know, we're not going to gut our reentry programs. They're important to make sure that those individuals who are released, 95% of whom, by the way, are ultimately released from our prisons and back into your communities. So you want some rehabilitation and some reentry programs instituted. And we said, no, we're not going to eliminate those programs. Instead, we had to reduce facilities. We closed 3 facilities. Tough to do because folks got laid off. But those are the types of decisions that get made when you elect the right people. We kept that money in reentry, and now because of the governor's great work and the legislators' great work, now we have a little bit more money to spend, and hopefully we'll be able to put some more money back into those facilities, but then also an equal amount of money in reentry programs. And I mentioned Bill because the governor came out and said, you know, we should take a look at no parole. It's been 20 years now. Just before I got elected in '95 it was passed, and it's been 20 years now. And, you know, let's take a look at it. It's $1 billion. You know, you think Medicaid has been studied 60 times, folks, by the Republicans. Medicaid fraud, 60 times. But in a $1 billion incarceration budget, it has never been reviewed.
Wonder why.
Wonder why. But by the way, we are going to have Medicaid expanded next year because we have a new senior policy advisor, Bob Brink. We're bringing in the big guns now. So we created a parole review commission. 30 members, Bill serves on it. Let's take a look at it. It's 20 years. And we've already identified 3,000 individuals who have committed offenses where the judge would prefer to send them to an alternative sentencing program, alternative diversion, whether it's a halfway house or some sort of mental health counseling, even community service possible. But there are not the resources to provide those services. We've already identified 3,000, right, Bill? That we can now ask the General Assembly for those services, keep them out of our prisons, keep them back where they can actually not reoffend. And one, it's expensive, but it doesn't actually address their mental health problems. or their substance abuse addictions. We need to put the money up front, not on the back end where it's extremely expensive. Lastly, and I know it's hot and I apologize, I'm just getting wound up though. We have several more to go. Last one. Climate change. It's getting warmer. And we now have a governor who believes in climate change. He reconstituted our Climate Change Commission, which I'm proud to serve as its co-chair with Natural Resources, Molly Ward, Secretary of Natural Resources. The governor also appointed me to serve as the Chief Resilience Officer in the Commonwealth. So we're doing a lot of things in Hampton Roads, but also statewide projects as well, so that we can make sure that we adapt to sea level rise. We do any number of energy efficiency programs, institutional use of microgrids, any number of things we need to do to make Virginia more resilient. We have an enormous port in the Commonwealth, an economic engine. We have all of the military installations in Hampton Roads and in Northern Virginia. So we have a governor who believes that now, and we're putting resources, time, effort into those efforts to make sure that we can do what we can with respect to resilience, but then also reducing carbon emissions. The Commission came forward with several recommendations, one of which cars that promote cars that would not have emissions, zero emissions, energy efficiency programs to promote, a bank that would provide low-income loans to businesses and other entities that would want to install such programs. So it does indeed make a difference. And those are just 3 areas, and there's many, many more. But you're all here to support a fantastic guy. He's been a tremendously accomplished legislator as well. And so thank you for all you do for all of the candidates. Fairfax is so strong, and Alexandria, while I'm here, Alexandria, Falls Church, Arlington, Northern Virginia comes through. We need to now into Loudoun and Prince William, so that Mark can get that senior leadership. He's on the Appropriations Committee now, and that's not easy to do. But they recognize his intelligence, his conscientious way he approaches legislation, and we need him to come back in January, fight for all the causes that you so believe in. And so with that, great friend, tremendous delegate, ladies and gentlemen, Delegate Mark Sickles.
So everybody saw this disaster we had a couple weeks ago with Justice Rouse, and hopefully she's going to be a Supreme Court justice. Did I hear? Everybody okay with that? Very qualified person. You know, somebody claimed that somebody wasn't called up enough or stroked hard enough or whatever, but the governor thought he did all he needed to do to seek input from people, very public, open process, and pick this very qualified justice. And we're going to have some fireworks maybe coming up. The Republicans are going to have to decide what to do about that when he reappoints her on September 16th, and whether they want to make an issue out of this, because, as you know, we're not in session. I'm with Dave Marsden on that, right? We're not in session.
We are not in session.
We're not in session. If anyone asks you, is the General Assembly in session? What is the answer? No. We're not in session.
Takes two to tango.
Right. So the governor's going to reappoint Justice Rouse when her month is up, and then she'll be serving there with the distinction until we come back in January, when we'll vote her in for a full 12-year term. Healthcare. I mentioned I'm going to be working a lot on appropriations. I happen to be on the healthcare subcommittee of that, and we've got so much going on. We're going to expand Medicaid, as Brian mentioned, but there's so many other things happening in that area too, especially in our commitment to mental health. You know, this issue of deadly firearms and mental health goes closely together, and we have the governor led this past winter with a $100 million program to have services provided for the first time to many people with chronic mental illness that were not served in the community, and we're going to keep that up. Unfortunately, the federal government would have paid for all of that if we'd accept Medicaid, but we are using Virginia taxpayer dollars plus some federal dollars to close the gaps. We've got hospital reform out there. We've got health care reform of various kinds, insurance reform that we need to do in following up to make the Affordable Care Act work like it should. So we have a full plate of things to do, and I'm looking forward to digging into all that. And I'm also on the Transportation Subcommittee now of appropriations, and I'm the only person there who knows. The first day I sat there, this is scary, Jeff. But it's the first day I sat there. I was the expert on WMATA. I mean, like, Delegate Peace, who's from Hanover County, I don't think he has a bus anywhere near. But anyway, you know, he just looked down at me, well, what do you think about that, Mark? So I told him what I thought. We wrote some bad legislation, and then I spent the next 3 weeks trying to fix what I just did. And that's true. Well, we got it done. So, WMATA, unfortunately, you know, we've had a year of bad press, bad news. There's issues there. It's a very complex public organization. We need strong leadership there. I hope we find that person soon, because so many of the people in my district depend on Metro. It is fundamental to, it's the second highest used Metro or transit system in the United States, and we have too many problems. We need to get that system working well, and I'm going to do everything I can to help on that. So there's a few things I'm going to work on, and usually take questions, but you can talk to me personally about it. So thank everyone for coming. Thank the Secretary Moran for coming all the way up from Richmond for this. And I apologize to Alex Kirkland for not introducing you, because you're my favorite chair we've ever had. And I used to be chair, so you're a lot favorite.
There you go.
Not more favorite than I am. So anyway, we're looking forward to a great campaign here. I do have an opponent. I saw one of her signs on the street today, so she's out there knocking on doors. I have two opponents, actually. And so we're going to work hard. We're going to work as a team. You know, we've got a lot of good Senate races going on. And I'll just divert 1 second. The House situation is interesting. It's easier to understand as for all the choices we have this year. But we have 3 open seats that we can win in Northern Virginia that are 50% Democratic. Jennifer Boysko, John Bell are candidates, and Josh King in Prince William and Stafford. And we have to win all 3 of those races. And some of your resources that you contribute to me tonight are going to go to those 3 open seats. We've got 2 incumbents that are going to be facing strong challenges, one in Newport News and one right here in McLean. But we think we've got those pretty much under wraps. I mean, Kathleen Murphy is the most outstanding candidate that we could ever hope for over in McLean. And then we have 5 challenge races that we're really high on. One is a school board member from Newport News who's a tremendous candidate named Shelley Simons, and she may be calling you sometimes. She's a fantastic candidate. Her opponent is not the strongest, and it's a 50-50 toss-up area. I think she's working really hard, and hope to get her there. So we're going to pick up a few seats. The Senate. Dave didn't talk much about this, but Dave has been responsible for recruiting the candidates for the Senate, and there's 6 races that are top notch. We only have to win 1 of them, hold what we have now, which is 1 open seat in that, and pick up 1, and we have the majority, but I think you're going to do better than that.
I think we will, but there's an old saying, success has many fathers, defeat is an orphan. So we better win.
Yeah. So if we win, Dave gets all the credit. So thanks again for coming. I really appreciate your help. Most of you for many, many years now. Thank you for keeping me in there. It's been an honor to represent you. Thanks.